Hello Kerbaleers. I thought it was time to revisit an old video I did 3-4 years ago, and this one is called the Kessler Run. What I did is went on KerbalX and downloaded the craft that I used for 108 satellites in one launch. It is my second most popular video. Over 50,000 views on that video alone. So I imported it into 1.9.1 and I'm going to see if it still works. Just double checking all the staging here to make sure everything is right. This craft was originally from version 1.2.1, so I have no idea what I was thinking at the time. Just to give you a little history on this craft, it was originally built on an old gaming laptop that was about 6 or 7 years old. And I filmed this at just a few frames per second in some parts. I later redid the video with when I got the new computer I have now. So I thought it'd be only right to come back and redo it again now that I've rebuilt this old computer. Just as like a stepping stone, and I've put everything into a playlist so you can see the progression through the computers. Coincidentally, the remake video was the first time that you heard my voice in a video. This craft has sort of become a symbol of my progression through KSP, my YouTube channel, the various computers I've had. It's a big part of my history in Jolly Roger Aerospace. By the way, at launch, this craft has over 760 parts. Most of that part count is in the satellites. Each satellite is only 6 parts, but you multiply that times 108, and yes, that starts being a lot of parts. Build on this computer handles it great until you start launching the satellites. Then it slows down a bit, but that's just KSP. At this point I was trying to make a larger orbit, but didn't realize I didn't have that much fuel, so I'm stuck with an elliptical orbit, and I'm just going to go ahead and launch them anyway. This is my favorite part. I love this. Oh yeah, here comes the beauty shot. As you can see, my frame rate dropped quite a bit once they were launched, but it was still smooth enough that I could play this at 1x speed. Now we're going to speed things up and fast forward to get the satellites distributed around the planet. Oh yeah, free internet for everyone. So I sat back and started thinking about it, and I'm like, you know what? I can do this better. Here's my mission. Build, test, and launch 3 refueling craft into the orbit of Kerbin, Moon, and Minmus. These next few clips were from testing the refueling craft. Having problems at the gravity turn where the rocket falls apart. right about there, something popped and everything is loose. And yeah, that's what happens. So we go back, rebuild, reset everything, and try again. Right about there, you see my engine fly away, and then the rest of the craft flies away. Rebuilt and reset again, and the same thing happens again. Yeah, back to the VAB. I thought surely it was going to work this time, and then that happened. Back to the VAB yet again, and this one comes out and yeah, it's separated too. At this point, I get mad and walk away. And then I got the bright idea to switch it over to 1.10. And all of a sudden, everything works. This first refueler is going into a low Kerbin orbit. Holding my breath here, and everything holds together. Breathe, breathe, it's okay, it's going to space this time. Here I'm matching my inclination to minus, so when the next refueler comes out, it can match orbits with this craft, refuel, and then just move on to minus. With that done, we can move on to the next launch. The second refueler is once again going to minus. Now that the second refueler's in orbit, I'm going to match orbits to the first refueler. That will in turn set me up for my burn to minus. Now that the boosters are empty, let's get rid of them and meet up with the other craft and dock. Here I'm just tidying up my intercept. I do rely pretty heavily on MechJeb. I've done this without, and it's just a lot easier for me because I've been playing for like thousands of hours in KSP. And for me it's just easier and more efficient to use MechJeb to launch and make all my node changes and everything. One thing you'll see a lot of in this video is I like to manually grab the ship with the claw from the cockpit. It makes it a little more fun. As I start transferring fuel, I'm finding I'm having more and more problems trying to get the fuel into the tanks I want. And it takes several tries sometimes to get them to go where I want. When I get to a certain point of frustration, I just decide to cut my losses and dump the boosters and just fill up the main rocket. With all the tanks full on this stage of the rocket, I make my preparations to burn for min-miss. About halfway out, I fine-tune my approach to min-miss. I keep making adjustments along the way until I'm ready to set my circularization. We have orbit around min-miss, now to just tidy it up a little bit. Once I'm happy with that, I begin my mission to send a refueler to the moon. This is the last of the refueler missions, then I can move on to the main mission. Just like we did with the last launch, we're going to rendezvous with the refueler that's here and refill before we head off to the moon. Before leaving each vehicle in its designated spot, I would rename them, and I have them named A, B, and C. Yes, for some reason it was giving me trouble and not going where I wanted it to go. And as I said before, I just love docking or grabbing with the claw and doing it by hand from the cockpit. Careful, buddy, you don't want to scratch the paint. Oh, ooh, that's coming out of your paycheck. Once again, I go through my troubles of trying to refill all the outer tanks, and it's not cooperating, and I end up ditching them. Here, I'm preparing for my burn to the moon. Once again, I make minor adjustments as I close in on the moon. Then I rename the refueler so I don't get it confused with the others. I think I designated this one C. Okay, I'm happy with those placements. Let's move on to the main mission. Mission 2. Build and launch a craft to deliver comsats to Moon, min-miss, and the edge of Kerbin's influence. Just a reminder here to always check your staging. course set at a nice angle. Let's see if we can get this one into space. Of course, I'm paying attention to getting all these nice beauty shots, and something breaks. It seems my trouble has followed me from 1.91. Okay, attempt number 2. Let's see if we can get this one into space. Again, paying attention to the beauty shots. At this point, something breaks again, right there, and I lose control of the craft. I don't realize I've lost control just yet. It takes a few minutes for it to dawn on me. But I do realize something had broke. Right here I'm confused because I know something broke, but I don't see anything moving around. You must return to the VAB. At this point, I don't care about the beauty shots, I just want to get the damn thing in orbit. I wanted to have my best pilot for this mission, but Vaos said she was busy getting her nails done. So I ended up with Jeb for this mission. So far everything's working perfectly. Let's go up and rendezvous with the refueler. Now that it's in space, I can play around and get some beauty shots. Now I did upgrade this one even though there's less satellites. Each satellite has 2 more parts now because I added separatrons to get them away from the craft a little bit. There's not much fuel in them, but it's enough to get them away from the craft. That comes back and haunts me later on. Set up my first rendezvous. Now all I have to do is match velocities with the target. Wrestling these tankers and getting them to do what I want is starting to get to be a pain. Then comes the fun part, the payoff. Have a good connection, let's start siphoning off some of this fuel. In my rush to fill the craft for the main mission, I forgot to save some for deorbiting. So I have to reattach and grab a little bit of fuel. Okay, we're all refueled. We're ready to start the Kessler Run. Before I do that though, I go back to the first refueler and set up to deorbit. First I'm going to drop this large tank. If you'll look down in the left corner, you'll notice my fuel gauge. That's right, I forgot to transfer the fuel into the deorbiter. These two poor Kerbals are now stuck here until somebody will stop and give them some fuel. Anyway, on with the mission. Let's go to the moon. Sorry you two, looks like you're going to be stuck here for a little while. I believe there's an extra bag of snags under your seats. That should hold you for a while. As usual, I make my adjustments all along the way. Now that I'm here, let's launch some satellites. Oh yeah, that's pretty. But that's only the first 8 of the 16 we're going to drop here. Looks like we might lose 2 or 3 because their orbits got too low, but other than that, I'm happy with this. Let's go to the other side and drop the other 8. Go. If you blink, you'll miss it. Yep. Same as last time, we might lose a couple, but for the most part, we're looking good. Now let's meet up with the refueler and prepare for our next part of the journey. We ended up nice and close. Let's just match our velocities. Here I'm checking what fuel I have and locking and unlocking certain tanks. this refueling goes a bit easier. That is until these two crafts decide to start playing Little Worm, and I have to disconnect and reconnect. They start the wiggles again, so I have to disconnect and reconnect yet again. Finally, a solid, stable, well, semi-stable, but okay, let's just get this fuel going before they break something. I double check to make sure I have enough fuel everywhere, and then off camera I send this one back to Kerbin. And of course I forgot to stop by and give fuel to those two poor Kerbals still floating in orbit. Okay, that's two pilots recovered. Let's go continue our mission. I did all the work getting this to Minmus off camera. Once here, I realized that I can't launch these with the Separatrons because that'll just launch them out of the sphere of influence of Minmus. So I launch them one at a time. Because I was a ditz, I kept forgetting to turn on the recorder. I missed a couple of things like the first launch of the satellites here at Minmus. Once the satellites are all set, I try to rendezvous with the refueling. Unfortunately, MechJeb decides to glitch out and not do what it's supposed to do and keeps giving me weird orbits. After messing with this for a little while, I decide to stop. I shut down KSP, I shut down the computer, restarted, reloaded KSP, and came back to it again. This time, MechJeb was working properly. Time to play Tag You're It and swap some fuel. I never get tired of doing this part. Fueling goes well this time. I may have spoken too soon. Now I go back to the tracking station to take a look and see what I've done so far. Ooh, that's nice. With the tanks full, it's time to go out to the far edges of Kerbin's influence. But first we send the 2 pilots from the refueler back to Kerbin. During this burn, I pretty much burn off all the fuel in the main tank and I drop it to just the re-entry module. Somehow I ended up with an encounter with the moon, so I had to shorten my orbit down to where I could re-enter. Once I'm at my Periapsis, I drop my Periapsis below 40,000 and prepare for re-entry. That's right, those 2 Kerbals are still floating out there in orbit. I forgot once again to drop by and give them fuel. I hope they're okay. Okay, that's 2 more pilots recovered. Off camera, once again I was a ditz and forgot to turn on the camera. I got into an very high orbit around Kerbin, and now I'm releasing some of the satellites. Just to remind you, I'm not using the Separatrons at the moment, I'm just launching them by hand. I still have a lot of satellites to launch out here. I might play with that later. Fast forward for a while to spread these out, and then I'll drop another batch on the other side. Yeah, Jeb decided to launch them by himself, so they went off with the Separatrons, and who knows how far. Oh, they're going way out there. Looks like I might have 2 more sets to launch. I had these all set up to launch on action groups, and then I forgot what buttons I was on, so I had to keep pressing buttons. You'll see like single firings. That's just, I don't know, I think KSP doing some weird thing. Okay, that's another set out. We got 1 more set to go. I think I'll do this one by hand. That's it, all satellites launched. Ooh, I've got some pretty orbits there. Can't wait till these all spread out and see what they look like. Okay, let's bring Jeb back home, and this time let's try to remember to stop and give fuel to those 2 poor Kerbals. Okay, let's turn on our satellite indicator, and oh my god, it's gorgeous! Let's just take a minute and appreciate this. Once the main stage is empty, I can discard that and continue the rest of the journey in the return module. And yes, I have more than enough fuel for those 2 poor stranded Kerbals. Now that I have a stable orbit, let's rendezvous with these guys and give them some fuel. Maybe a couple extra bags of snacks from Jeb. Now, this time I had to do everything backwards. Instead of using the claw to grab the ship, I have to use the ship to grab the claw. The refueler's return module has no SAS. Yeah, that was a big slip on my part. It's still the basic docking skills, but just doing it backwards. I think the hardest part here was finding a clear spot to connect. Once connected, Jeb gives them the much needed fuel and snacks so they can go home. That's right, you two, you can go home now. I'm trying to aim for the Space Center. I'm a little off. Okay, those 2 poor Kerbals are finally home. Let's go back up and bring Jeb home. Jeb doesn't really care much where he lands, he just wants to get home and start his next mission. You see, to Jeb, this is the best roller coaster ride ever made. And if you watch his face down in the corner, you can see how happy he is. Okay, that's the last pilot. Jebediah himself recovered. I think the mission is complete. Let's go into the tracking station and see what I've done. Look at that. Some of the satellites have actually gone out far enough to have their own orbit around Kerbal. Best internet coverage ever. And I do this free for Kerbal kind, because I'm just that generous. Now let's fast forward and show it to you in motion. It's so beautiful. Mesmerizing, isn't it? At some point, I'm gonna have to come back to this, and I'm gonna have to put satellites around every object in the Kerbal system. Well, every planetary moon object. That's a big project. I'm gonna have to send out a lot of refuelers. I hope you guys enjoyed this little project that I did. I haven't been out in space for a while, so I kind of had a lot of fun doing this. And when I first started editing this, when I loaded all the footage in, I had over 5 hours of footage, and I managed to reduce it down to 41 minutes. Not too bad, huh? Thank you for watching as always, and I'll see you next time, Kerbaleers.